Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sun Moon Audiobook, the channel where we share wisdom and inspiring book journeys to help you grow and develop your best self, inside and out. Somewhere in the deep and quiet spaces of your soul, there's a thread you've been holding without even realizing it. It's thin but strong, invisible yet unbreakable. And it connects you to something far beyond the life you're living right now. You may have ignored it for years, buried it beneath the weight of responsibilities, the noise of other people's expectations, and the constant hum of daily survival. But it's there, always there. Pull on it, and you might feel a shift, like the faint tug of the tide beneath your feet. That thread is your calling, the life you were meant to live before the world told you to be practical. And Paulo Coelho The Alchemist is, in many ways, a love letter to that thread. Coelho writes with the voice of someone who has walked deserts, both literal and emotional. A Brazilian writer whose books have crossed more than 80 languages. He carries in his words a rare kind of clarity, the kind that only comes from getting lost, making mistakes, and listening to whispers most people ignore. He doesn't preach or lecture. Instead, he tells a story so simple, it feels like a dream you've always known. And in that story, he leaves the map back to yourself. The tale begins with Santiago, a shepherd boy in Spain whose life is uncomplicated days, moving with the rhythm of his flock. Nights sleeping under open skies. It's a small, predictable world, but within him burns a quiet unrest. Then comes a dream vivid, insistent of treasure buried near the Egyptian pyramids. Most people would dismiss such a dream, but Santiago doesn't. And here, Coelho plants the first seed of the journey, the willingness to believe that what calls to you might be real, even if no one else understands. This is where we meet the idea of the personal legend, the unique purpose each of us is born with. It's a phrase Coelho weaves through the novel like a mantra, a reminder that your soul has its own map. Following it isn't easy. In fact, it often feels impossible, but ignoring it is a kind of slow death. Santiago meets a mysterious old king, a figure who seems to have stepped right out of myth, who tells him, "When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it." It's one of those lines you can carry with you for the rest of your life. And yet, as Santiago soon learns, conspiring does not mean handing you everything without cost. He sells his sheep to fund his journey and sets out toward Egypt, only to be robbed almost immediately in a foreign city. This is the part so many of us know too well, the moment when you step toward your dream and the ground gives way beneath you. For many, this is where the journey ends. But Santiago stays. He works for a crystal merchant to rebuild what he's lost. It's tedious, humbling work, far from the romance of treasure hunting, but it teaches him patience, discipline, and the art of finding opportunity in the smallest details. You, listening now, might be in your own crystal shop moment. You might feel as though your dream has stalled, that you're stuck polishing someone else's glass instead of chasing your own gold. But like Santiago, you're not stuck, you're being shaped. The journey is making you into someone who can carry the treasure without dropping it. Time passes, and Santiago joins a caravan crossing the desert. Here, he meets the Englishman, a seeker of the ancient art of alchemy, turning lead into gold. But the deeper lesson is that real alchemy happens inside us. It's in the way hardship can refine us, the way fear can become courage, the way an ordinary life can turn extraordinary when we choose to see it differently. The desert, in Coelho's hands, becomes its own character. It's vast, unyielding, and filled with hidden dangers, but also with secrets for those who listen. Santiago learns to read the language of the world, a kind of universal tongue made of signs, omens, and patterns. He begins to see how everything, the wind, the flight of birds, the shifting of sand, is connected. And here, perhaps, you begin to see it too. That life is always speaking to you, though often in whispers. In the desert, Santiago meets the alchemist himself, a man who has mastered the art not just of transforming metals, but of transforming life. The alchemist tells him that to reach his personal legend, he must be willing to give up everything. And then, just as Santiago falls in love with Fatima, a woman of the desert, The Alchemist makes it clear, love that is true will never hold you back from your path. It's a truth that cuts deep. For a moment, Santiago considers staying, but Fatima's love is rooted in freedom. She tells him she will wait, because in the desert, one learns patience. And this is where I remember a quiet afternoon years ago, sitting on a park bench as the sun dipped low, holding onto something I thought I couldn't live without. In that stillness, I realized that real love doesn't bind. It trusts. Sometimes, it even lets go. Santiago's path takes him into danger, forcing him to trust his instincts and the lessons of the desert. The Alchemist teaches him that fear is the biggest barrier to hearing your heart. Don't give in to your fears, he says. If you do, you won't be able to talk to your heart. That phrase, like the first mantra about the universe conspiring, becomes an anchor in the storm. And then comes the moment Santiago reaches the pyramids, only to find the treasure is not there. It is, in a twist both cruel and perfect, back where he began, buried near the old sycamore tree where he once dreamed of it. And here, Coelho delivers his final gift. Sometimes you must travel far, endure hardship, and be transformed before you can recognize the treasure that was always near you. The story closes as Santiago prepares to return to Fatima, treasure in hand, but far richer in soul than in gold. And now, I want you to pause, because this is the part of the story where it's not about Santiago anymore. It's about you. What is your personal legend? What is the dream you've been dismissing as impractical or impossible? What would it look like to believe, even for a moment, that the universe is conspiring in your favor? You don't have to see the whole path. Santiago never did. You only need to take the next step, and then the one after that. Maybe you're thinking, but what if I fail? And I'll tell you what Coelho tells through Santiago. Failure is just part of the desert's test. It's not proof you're on the wrong path. It's preparation. Look at the lives of those who've lived their personal legends. Oprah Winfrey, who turned a childhood of hardship into a life of influence and inspiration. J.K. Rowling, who wrote her way out of despair into a story that touched millions. Malala Yousafzai, who risked everything for her dream of education. Different deserts, same truth. When you move toward your treasure, the world will rise to meet you. But it won't clear the path entirely, because the path itself is what makes you worthy of the gold. And the gold is never just coin or jewels. It's the courage you didn't know you had, the wisdom you didn't realize you were gathering, the love that grows deeper because you walked the road instead of standing still. The desert is patient, the omens are waiting, and your thread, that quiet, unbreakable thread, is still in your hand. So listen, begin, trust. Walk toward your personal legend, knowing that the treasure is not just at the end, it's in the becoming. And when you return, and you will, you'll see your own life with new eyes. You'll understand that the journey was always the point. And if Santiago's story has stirred something in you, if it has reminded you of the dream you've been keeping in the quiet, I want you to share that. Like, comment, subscribe, and tell your story, not just for me, but for the others who are waiting to hear it, so they too can find the courage to take their first step. Together, we can remind each other that the universe is always conspiring for those who dare to dream. Then let us walk deeper into the desert of this story, not to hurry toward the end, but to let the sand and wind carry us further into what it means to live a life that answers its calling. Santiago's steps across the desert are not just his own. They are a map of the internal path we all walk when we dare to want something more. Every grain of sand he crosses feels like a lesson: patience in the endless horizon, humility in the face of forces bigger than him, trust when no sign appears for days. You can almost feel the sun burning his back, the dryness in his mouth, the ache in his legs, and yet the rhythm of walking becomes its own kind of prayer. And here is where Coelho weaves the quiet magic of the language of the world. This idea that everything, the wind, the sun, the stars, the very earth is speaking to us if we will only listen. Santiago learns to read omens not by memorizing rules, but by paying attention. A hawk flying overhead, A shift in the caravan's mood. The way the desert air changes just before a storm, all of it becomes part of a conversation between him and the universe. And perhaps this is one of the most overlooked lessons in The Alchemist. That wisdom is rarely about knowing in advance. It's about staying awake, receptive, open to the guidance that arrives in small, almost invisible ways. You too might have felt such moments, a phone call at just the right time, a chance meeting that changes everything, an unexpected delay that keeps you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The difference between missing these signs and recognizing them is simply whether you're paying attention. Santiago's relationship with the Englishman is another layer of this journey. The Englishman is obsessed with learning the formula for alchemy from books, while Santiago is learning directly from the desert. Coelho is showing us that while knowledge is valuable, it's experience that turns knowledge into wisdom. You can study transformation forever, but at some point, you must live it. This mirrors so many moments in our own lives, where we prepare endlessly but hesitate to act because we fear imperfection. Yet the alchemist gently insists, action is where the alchemy happens. The alchemist himself is a figure wrapped in mystery, appearing in the story like a living embodiment of the truth Santiago has been sensing, but not yet fully grasping. He doesn't overwhelm Santiago with instructions. Instead, he provokes him to listen more deeply to his own heart. He reminds him that the heart is sometimes afraid because it fears losing what it loves, but that very fear is a sign you are close to something worth having. There's a tenderness in this teaching because it acknowledges that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk forward in spite of it. And so, they travel together, and Santiago begins to understand that the journey's greatest gift is not the treasure itself, but the person he is becoming in pursuit of it. There's a scene where Santiago watches the desert at sunset, feeling as though the wind, the sand, and the stars are all part of one living being. He senses that he is not separate from the world around him, but a thread in its fabric. That sense of unity is what gives him the strength to continue when the way ahead feels impossible. And maybe you've had a glimpse of that yourself, a moment in nature or in quiet reflection, where you felt both small and infinite, both humbled and deeply at home. Those moments change you. Santiago's love for Fatima becomes another test of his resolve. It would be so easy to stay with her, to let the dream fade into the comfort of daily life. But the alchemist reminds him that true love will not ask you to abandon your personal legend. It will support it. Fatima understands this without needing to be convinced. She tells Santiago she will wait, because she loves him as part of the desert, and the desert knows patience. This challenges so much of what we are taught about love in our culture, the idea that love means possession, control, or constant proximity. Coelho shows us a different kind of love, one rooted in trust and freedom, where two people can walk their own paths without fear of losing each other. When danger comes, as it always does in the desert, Santiago learns to trust his instincts, even when logic would tell him to turn back. The alchemist tells him that to fulfill his personal legend, he must risk everything, even his own life if necessary. This is not recklessness, but devotion, the understanding that a dream worth living for is also worth the risk of failure. And so they move toward the pyramids, and Santiago's faith is tested again and again. At one point, he is forced to turn himself into the wind to prove his worth to desert tribesmen who threaten to kill him. It's an impossible task, and yet, by listening to the desert, the wind, and the sun, he discovers that transformation is possible when you align yourself with the forces of life rather than fighting against them. This scene is one of the most symbolic in the book, and one of the most beautiful, the idea that you can become anything when you are in harmony with the world's language. When Santiago finally reaches the pyramids, the moment is almost unbearably charged. Years of longing, miles of hardship, and now, at last, he stands before them. He digs in the sand, heart pounding only to be beaten and robbed again. It is in this moment of apparent defeat that the final revelation comes. One of his attackers tells him that he once had a dream of treasure buried in Spain, near a ruined church and a sycamore tree. And Santiago knows that is where it all began. That is where the real treasure lies. The twist is both ironic and profound. The treasure was always at home, but without the journey, Santiago could never have seen it for what it was. He returns, digs beneath the roots of the sycamore, and finds gold and jewels beyond his wildest imagining. And yet, you sense that the real wealth he carries is not in the chest at his feet, but in the lightness of his spirit, the depth of his trust, and the unshakable knowing that he can face whatever comes next. This is the heart of the alchemist, that the journey changes you so you can receive what was yours all along. The gold is a mirror, reflecting the person you became to find it. And in this way, Santiago's story becomes our own. You might not be crossing literal deserts or speaking to alchemists, but you have your own omens, your own tests, your own treasure waiting for you to notice it. The call is still there. The question is, will you answer? The desert is ready. The wind is waiting. And your thread is still in your hand. You have only to take the next step. Then let us keep walking, because the desert still has more to teach us, and Santiago's footsteps have left signs in the sand we have not yet followed. One of the quiet miracles of The Alchemist is that it tells you something you may have always suspected, that the journey toward your dream is not a straight line. It bends and twists. It doubles back on itself. It sends you in directions you didn't expect. And yet, every detour is part of the map. Santiago didn't know that being robbed twice, or working for a crystal merchant, or falling in love with a woman he would have to leave, were all pieces of the same puzzle. But by the time he stood under the pyramids, every moment fit. That is the nature of a personal legend. It makes sense in reverse, never at the start. You, who are listening now, might be standing in a place that feels like the wrong direction. You might feel you've wandered too far, or wasted too much time. But perhaps you are not lost at all. Perhaps you are exactly where the path requires you to be. Coelho seems to whisper this truth between his lines. There are no wasted steps when you are moving toward your calling. Even the mistakes, even the heartbreaks, are shaping the person who will one day hold the treasure. This is why Santiago's time with the crystal merchant matters so much. On the surface, it's a pause, a setback. But in that small shop, he learns how to improve what already exists, how to see opportunity in limitation. He convinces the merchant to place crystal in the sunlight to attract more customers, to serve tea in crystal glasses so people will admire them. Slowly, business improves. Santiago's dream hasn't disappeared, it's simply being refined. And maybe this is your crystal shop moment too, a season where you're not yet where you want to be, but you're learning skills, patience, and endurance you will need later. It's not glamorous, but it's essential. In the desert, Santiago learns another profound truth from The Alchemist, that life will test you most severely when you are closest to your goal. It is as if the world wants to be sure you truly desire what you say you do. For Santiago, that test comes when the tribesmen threaten him, demanding proof of his worth. His task to become the wind is so impossible that it forces him to step beyond everything he thought he knew. And yet, by surrendering to the desert, the wind, and the sun, he becomes part of them. He transforms, not by force, but by alignment. This is perhaps one of the book's most powerful metaphors, that real transformation happens when you stop resisting and start participating in the flow of life. You can't push the wind into blowing. You can only become one with its current. The same is true of our dreams. You cannot drag them into being through sheer force. You must move with the tides of life, adjusting your sails when the wind changes, trusting that the same forces that created your dream will help carry you toward it. And here is where Coelho's teaching becomes deeply personal. The desert is not just an external place. It's the inner space where you are stripped of distraction, where you must face your doubts, your fears, your longing. In that space, everything unnecessary falls away, and what remains is the truth of what you want most. Many avoid this inner desert because it is uncomfortable, because it asks for honesty. But Santiago walks through it, and so must we if we want to reach our own pyramids. Think, too, of the role of love in this story. Fatima does not beg Santiago to stay, nor does she demand proof of his affection. She simply waits, anchored in the belief that he will return. This is not the kind of love that traps. It's the kind that trusts. And that is a rare and precious thing to love without trying to control, to support without demanding sacrifice of the soul. Santiago's journey shows that love and purpose are not enemies. In fact, true love strengthens purpose because it wants to see the beloved fully alive, fully themselves. In our own lives, we may need to ask, is the love I hold on to helping me become more of who I am, or is it keeping me from my personal legend? When Santiago finally reaches the treasure, the revelation is more than just the location of gold. It is the understanding that he could have found it at the start, but if he had, he would not have been ready to receive it. He would not have known its worth. The years, the miles, the trials, the joy, and the loss, all of it prepared him for that moment. And perhaps this is one of the hardest truths for us to accept, that the thing we seek may already be within reach, but the journey is necessary to make us ready. This is why people who achieve something without struggle often cannot hold on to it. They have not yet built the strength the treasure requires. Santiago returns to the sycamore tree not just with gold, but with a different heart, one that listens easily to the language of the world, one that trusts the universe's timing, one that knows love can wait when it is real. And this is why The Alchemist is more than a story. It is an invitation. It asks you to look at your own life, to find the thread of your personal legend, to take the first step into your own desert. It tells you that fear is not a reason to stop. It's a sign that you are close to something that matters. It urges you to pay attention to the omens, the small nudges, the chance encounters, because they are the language of the world speaking to you. And it promises that if you move toward your dream with an open heart, the universe will conspire to help you not by making it easy, but by making you ready. The desert is calling, and the thread in your hand is waiting to be pulled. You can follow it now, or you can wait, but it will keep tugging, quietly, patiently, until you are ready to listen. And when you do, you may find that the treasure is not at the end of the world, but right where you began only now. You have the eyes to see it. Then let us take these last miles slowly, because in the story's final stretch, there are truths worth lingering over, truths that deepen the meaning of Santiago's journey and anchor it into our own lives. You see, the brilliance of The Alchemist is that it never tells you your personal legend will arrive quickly or without cost. In fact, it prepares you for the opposite. It whispers that the path will require sacrifice, that there will be moments you feel as though you've lost everything, and that these moments are not mistakes, they are the refining fire. Santiago's first loss came almost immediately when he was robbed in Tangier. That was the desert's opening handshake, testing whether he would retreat to the comfort of his sheep or lean into the unknown. Later, his love for Fatima presented another test, one of the most seductive of all the offer of happiness, without the fulfillment of his deeper calling. Many people take that offer. They convince themselves that what they have is good enough, silencing the ache for more. But Coelho makes it clear, good enough can be the enemy of the life you are meant to live. Fatima's quiet strength in letting Santiago go is one of the most understated acts of love in the book, and perhaps one of the greatest. It tells us that real love supports the soul's journey, even when it means distance. Then there is the lesson of the alchemist himself. He doesn't shield Santiago from hardship or solve his problems for him. Instead, he pushes him into situations where he must rely on his own understanding, his own courage, his own ability to listen to the world. This is a vital truth for anyone seeking their personal legend. No one can walk the path for you. Mentors, friends, and guides can point the way, but the walking must be yours. The alchemist's role is to remind Santiago that he already has everything he needs. How often do we forget that? We think we lack resources, knowledge, or strength, when in reality, we are simply avoiding the moment where we must trust what we already carry. And here lies another of Coelho's quiet messages. Your heart is not just a compass, it is a mirror. When Santiago learns to hear it clearly, he also begins to see himself as he truly is, capable, resourceful, resilient. This mirrors something I once witnessed on a late winter morning, years ago. when a friend I deeply admired finally left a job that had been draining her spirit for years. She didn't have a new position lined up, only a small savings account and an unshakable sense that her life was meant for more. In the weeks that followed, I saw her transform, not because everything fell into place instantly, but because the act of stepping into the unknown unlocked parts of her she had long hidden. She became brighter, more alive, more herself. That's the alchemy Coelho is speaking of. It's not just about finding treasure at the end. It's about becoming the kind of person who can live fully no matter where you are. The turning into the wind scene, where Santiago literally trusts his life to his understanding of the world's language, may be the most breathtaking metaphor in the book. He surrenders not in defeat, but in confidence, aligning himself so deeply with the forces around him that he transcends the limits of his own body. It's a reminder that there are moments when you can only go forward by letting go of control. And often, it's in those moments that something greater than you steps in to carry you across the impossible. When Santiago finally learns the location of the treasure from the man who beats him at the pyramids, the irony is sharp. The treasure is back in Spain, beneath the roots of the tree where his journey began. But Coelho doesn't frame this as a joke or a waste. Instead, it's the perfect final lesson. You sometimes must leave home to understand what home truly is. You must cross deserts to realize that what you sought was already within reach. But without the journey, without the testing and transformation, you wouldn't have recognized it, let alone been able to keep it. And this is where the novel turns its gaze fully onto you. What if the thing you have been searching for is already near you? What if the treasure is buried in your own backyard, but you must walk your desert first to know how to dig? What if the people, opportunities, or ideas you've been waiting for are already in your life, waiting for you to see them with the eyes of someone who has been changed by the journey? The return to the sycamore tree is Santiago's full circle, but it is also his beginning. He has the treasure now, yes, but more importantly, he has the knowledge of who he is and the confidence to listen to his heart for the rest of his days. He can love Fatima fully, not as a man wondering what might have been, but as one who has lived it. And here we find the quietest, most enduring message of The Alchemist. The point is not just to reach your personal legend once, it's to keep listening for the next one. The journey never truly ends. The desert is always there, the omens are always speaking, and the universe is always ready to conspire with you again. So maybe the question isn't whether you have a personal legend, but whether you are willing to follow it again and again in all the different seasons of your life. And if you're feeling that pull now, that tug on the invisible thread, let Santiago's story remind you that you don't need the whole map. You only need to start walking. You only need to trust the next step. You only need to listen. The rest will unfold in its time. And when it does, you will see that the gold at the end is not separate from the sand beneath your feet. It was all part of the same story. So here is my quiet invitation to you. Let today be the day you listen to the whisper you've been ignoring. Let it be the day you take one small, undeniable step toward the life you've imagined. Don't wait until you have certainty. Don't wait until the fear goes away. Begin and watch how the world begins to meet you halfway. And if this story has touched you, if it has reminded you of something you had almost forgotten, I would love for you to share it. Like this message, leave a comment with your own treasures and desserts, and subscribe so we can keep walking together. Your voice, your journey, might be the sign someone else has been waiting for. And together, we can remind each other of what Coelho told us all along. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.